Good evening. Find often in Jerusalem, I need to emphasize the fact that chanting is not prayer. Nothing wrong with prayer, nothing wrong with chanting. But the chants we do are a ritual, and ritual and prayer are not the same thing. So, because there's no, in Buddhist thought and belief even, there's no deity or supernatural kind of being, and the Buddha is not that as well. Buddha actually is dead. Then there's nothing to pray to. Now, that's not to say that if you are religious, prayer is not serving a different purpose from a different belief, though. But in the Buddhist thought, it doesn't share that belief. So therefore, there's no way your chants can be prayers. They're going to yourself and to the people around you. That's as far as they go. But that's probably far enough. So, as with your sitting. In the retreat, we were working with some koans, and you may still have the pages if you were on the retreat a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago, whenever it was, in the past. And the koans I find very helpful because they're inscrutable, meaning they don't really give you much to work with. And it's placing a lot of responsibility on you as an individual to figure it out for yourself, which is a little disturbing sometimes. Because even though we sit in a community and we want to have a sangha for support, you really are on your own. And can be unsettling. And one of the koans that comes to mind often for me is the one about, and I mentioned it in the past frequently, about someone coming in and asking the student who's sitting meditation, what are you doing? And that's such a great, just there could be the end of the koan. Someone meditating. What are you doing? It's a good koan. And if we have a good idea what we're doing, are we doing it? And if we have a pretty good idea of what we're doing in meditation, does that then become a goal that we're setting ourselves up to fail? What are you doing? Well, it goes on, of course, to say, I'm sitting meditation, he grabs the towel and he says, what are you doing? I'm making a mirror. Well, how are you making a mirror? By polishing it. How are you becoming a Buddha? By meditating. Which doesn't mean you won't become a Buddha by meditating. It just means if that's the goal, and if you have a really good idea, then sometimes we become caged, become prisoners of our own ideas, so that our ideas become the reality instead of reality itself. And that's one of the things that these koans are trying to cut through, is when we talk about attachment and aversion and delusion, the three poisons in the Buddhist teachings that are really causing us a lot of problems and grief and pain. It's attachments to the ideas we have and aversions to the ideas. When you see a person who's of a different belief or shape or color or gender, if you like or dislike them, it's not the person you're liking or disliking. It's the idea that you're carrying about that person. So all of the Dharma is coming back to face your own mind. And some of these koans, I'm going to share a few other ones, and see if you can see what they all have in common. I was scanning through some of these koans, which is not the way to deal with koans. Usually one koan is worked with for years. but I've decided to go through about 100 today and see what I found. Speed koan. Like speed dating. I was like, speed koaning. So, what is Buddha? 3 pounds of flax. What is the way? Ordinary mind. What is Buddha? Toilet paper. How can you be one with the universe? I'm thinking about the birds and the flowers. What is the secret teaching? Not mind, not Buddha, not things. What is Buddha? The mind. What is the way? This is one I like. This koan was asked to the Buddha, what is the way? And the answer was, the Buddha kept meditating. He just didn't bother to respond. So silence. What is Buddha? Not mind, not Buddha. What is the way? The oak tree. What is the truth? Empty, nothing holy. What is Buddha? Well, this is another favorite of mine. It starts like this. Hui Chao asks, what is Buddha? The teacher answers, you're Hui Chao. What's the teachings of a lifetime? A good comment. What is the meaning of the teachings? Here's another good one. The master replied, sitting for a long time gets really tiring. What is infinite samadhi? The answer, food in the bowl, water in the bucket. Meaning, like water in the bucket, that was their toilet. And that's pretty much all there was. And the last one I want to share is this one, which is a little story. When Sui Feng was living in a hut, there were 2 monks who came to pay their respects. Seeing them coming, he pushed open the door of his hut with his hand, popped out and said, what is it? A monk also said in response, what is it? Hui Feng lowered his head and went back into his hut. What is it? What do you want? A good comment, an appropriate statement. And those are just a few of that same, what probably was the most common koan in all their collections, was simply asking that question, what does this mean? What are we doing? What is the way? What is the way? What's my goal here? You know, when I'm asking, like, what is Buddha? You know, what am I supposed to be getting out of this? We study the teachings and we learn them, and we think we have a pretty good idea. And from the relative level, you do have a good idea. But from the great mind level, from the absolute level, from the empty place, when you empty that teacup, you know, from everything you know. And that's another old story with the master who pours a teacup and it overflows until the teacher says, stop. And he says, yeah, your mind is overflowing. Your mind is too full. Nothing can go in there. So, how do we do this? And I think all of these koans are directed pretty clearly at each one of us. And so, how do we answer that question? What are you doing if you're sitting here? What is it? What is it? This life we're living. Is it really enough? Are we doing enough? What is the way? I mean, there's your individual way, the choices you've made, the upbringing you've had, the places you live in, the changes you're making. They're all those. But then within that, there's the great way. How do you realize that in your own way? And not that one is small and one is big, but one is individual and one is universal. And how do you bring them together to realize that it's actually the same? That form and emptiness, that all the duality that we read about in the Heart Sutra is actually your life of living as an individual and as a universal Buddha. And I don't think these are just, interesting and fun words. I really don't. Otherwise the tradition wouldn't have lasted till now. It wouldn't have had much to hold it. But the truth is, people have realized the great way, and they continue to in their lives. And it keeps civilization afloat. This is what keeps civilization going. And technological advance is great, but enlightened beings transmitting from mind to mind the truth of what it means to be here as a human being and as a Buddha. So how do you do it? Because I need to hear. So I think I should ask the question differently. I saw a teacher was giving a talk about, it was entitled something about keeping sane or keeping resilient and happy and all the good things in a world that's collapsing. And I can't, that's too much for me. But it does seem often that things are pretty crazy. Yeah. That things are pretty crazy. That everybody's like a good person, but collectively, we're pretty terrible. Yeah. At least the way we behave to the planet and often to others. Individually, everyone has a really good heart, but collectively, what happens? So, how do you stay good and keep sane when things seem crazy? How do you stay on your path when there's a lot pulling you off of it? What helps you get through the day? Jonathan.
Today? You mean today?
I just asked the question.
feel it, to concentrate in the shalom מתחיל בתוכי, is a kind of escapism. But to be involved in the things around is make me almost crazy.
Sounds right.
I feel like there's a need to be on guard a lot about what kind of input you're allowing to get into your atmosphere. I mean, sometimes I listen to the radio in the kitchen and then I realize I'm listening to commercials for a few minutes and they're bombing my brain and I'm not even aware of it. And then for a moment I'm aware of it and I turn it off. Or try to have a bit of a choice in what kind of input you're allowing and what can you screen.
I enjoy being in nature because nature and animals are kind of best case scenario, not affected by us. Like, I can sit and watch my cat and just be fascinated about how, like, he's not impacted by the surroundings, he just is. And he sees a fly and he goes for it, he just chases it. And it's fun to watch him be so, like, not impacted by the world. The same with the flowers and the trees, they sway in the wind and they just are. And the chaos around is there, but they are still just what they are. It makes me feel calm.
A metaphor that I get back to in my mind a lot is like in airplanes they give this instruction that in case of low oxygen you have to breathe in first before you help out. I guess I'm still in the first stage.
They gave a metaphor about that. These two tightrope walkers walking on a tightrope, and one of them is, there's two of them, and he said if one of them tries to help the other, they're both going to fall. But each of them has to be really well balanced for it to work. So that I think was the direct instruction that. It's not like even mutually exclusive. It's like helping yourself is helping someone else.
For me, it's what helps me get through the day is distractions, I think. So like all of the aversions, delusions, attachments, those for now are what helps me get through the day. Series, Facebook, Instagram, all of that.
You get points for honesty.
I think slowing down also. Whenever I manage to be aware enough to take a choice of slow things down a little, always makes things better. Always gives more space for choice rather than automatic stuff.
For me, I try to hold this strange belief that everything is going to be fine at the end. Like, I don't know, it doesn't succeed to me every time, but sometimes I think to myself, I don't know, most of the things I had through in my life was fine in the end. I didn't have a lot of like big disasters, you know. So when I think about that, I say, okay, I feel some difficulty now in my studying, in my life, in my relationships in my life, but so far I haven't that much of big disasters in my life. So I guess it's gonna be fine plus minus in that situation also. It doesn't. It works out for me every time, but sometimes it's like we zoom out to the situation somehow, and okay, probably gonna be fine.
You know you're gonna die. Just deal with that. So we'll be fine until then.
What gets me through the day is to being with the people I see as I have a pure relationship with, not one that is material or a mean, but one that is I have a dialogue with. That being with them helps me be myself and let them be themselves and have this relationship and be with these people. And when you can be with them, you know that they are present even if they're not physically.
Well, you just described really what Sangha is. Sangha is a sort of a community that enables you to be your best. Yeah. I'm going to finish with the advice that Buddha gave, which is really simple and straightforward, actually. And it's the practice of mindfulness. Right mindfulness. The Buddha taught right mindfulness as the most direct path to enlightenment. In fact, at the end of his sutta, the Satipatthana Sutta, his teaching on mindfulness, he says, if you practice this for 1 year, you'll get enlightened. And then he says, no, actually, for 6 months, for a month actually, for 2 weeks. If you practice mindfulness correctly for 1 week, for 7 days, you'll have full, complete emancipation, enlightenment. So it's pretty much the only time that he was as direct, saying this is going to work. But of course, being fully mindful for 7 days will take half a century of practice. Minimum. Now, mindfulness, even though in this sutra, which is the direct words and teachings of the Buddha, he taught 4 frameworks or foundations of mindfulness, which have to do with mindfulness of body and mindfulness of feelings, and mindfulness of mind, and mindfulness of qualities of mind. Those 4 ways that are the objects of mindfulness can be summarized in in 3 real main efforts that we make. That mindfulness is turning your attention to what you're doing now. Okay, it's trying to keep your attention on your present activity. That's the one thing. The second aspect of mindfulness is being able to notice when you've left that, when you become distracted, and to bring your mind back. So it's bringing your attention to your present activity, noticing when you're distracted from it and coming back to it. And the third aspect of mindfulness is a kind of choosing. It's being able to be aware that when you're within that activity, thoughts arise. And some of those thoughts are helpful and some are unhelpful. Some are even harmful thoughts. Thoughts that are based on anger or aggression or hatred or fear or anxiety. And some thoughts are very helpful. Even within that activity, compassionate, caring thoughts. So the Buddha in his teaching on mindfulness was not saying thoughts are bad, but being aware of what's helpful and what's harmful, and making the right choice. Mindfulness is not only being aware of your present activity, but it's within that activity, positive states of mind arise and negative states of mind arise. Notice the difference and choose the good. With that simple instruction, your life will go exactly the way it should to lead to enlightenment. Simple, direct, useful, and true. Follow those 3 practices of mindfulness, and whatever you're doing will be your great way. Thank you.